So how do you feel about boundaries? It's a legitimate question. A lot of people come to me really struggling with this concept. They often feel guilty for setting boundaries, or they're not sure about even what a boundary is. They've heard the term, set the boundary, things like that, but that's really confusing for them because it's not something that's well taught in our society nowadays, right? They know that boundaries are really important to having healthy, constructive, supportive, and wonderful relationships, but why? And oftentimes they also know that they feel like their boundaries are being violated, but they can't quite pinpoint what the boundary is that's being violated. That's why I've created the Clarifying and Creating Your Boundaries free PDF. You can find out what your boundaries are, how to tune in to what the boundary needs to be, and how to effectively create and communicate your boundary so that way you stay in this place that respects you, respects the other person, but also gives you the confidence in your boundaries so that way you stop being gaslighted, disrespected, and unseen. Having your boundaries really clear gives you a voice and also helps the other person stay in accountability with themselves. So that's not a role that you have to take on anymore. So if you are ready to really have clear boundaries, to really understand what your role is in the boundary, and to give yourself some safety and some protection against people that might try to gaslight you or are just being disrespectful, go grab my Creating and Clarifying Your Boundary PDF at erinandersonthetraumacoach.com. And while you're there, let's schedule a call with me. Come have a chat with me so that way I can really, really help you master this particular skill, creating boundaries, clarifying the boundary, communicating that boundary, and so that way I can also help you have relationships that show up to support you, cherish you, and love you.
Hey everyone! Welcome back to a brand new season of another episode, etc., of The Other Side of the Struggle. Yes, I am coming back. Yes, we are resurrecting the other side of the struggle, and thank you so much for being patient with me as I kind of got some stuff figured out. I do have a new podcast called Bold Hearts, Big Moves. I have been over there for the last year, and I'm still going to be posting content in that podcast as well. But I've had a lot of you saying, Erin, please come back, post more episodes, help me heal from XYZ. Like, talk to me about Christ, talk to me about God. Like, I love your podcast. I love this podcast. And so I decided, and I'll tell you why I actually why I stepped back for a little bit, and it was because I was getting a lot of you sweet, wonderful ladies calling me, and actually scheduling calls with me. And please, feel free to do so still. The link will be in the description below. But what I was noticing is a lot of you were blaming yourself for what was going on and somehow saying that if you could just do XYZ better, then maybe he would change, or maybe this would change, or. And I had people calling me that were in really, really high positions of authority. We're talking politicians, we're talking doctors, dentists, lawyers. like a lot of you wonderful women are massive entrepreneurs, and you're out there, you're kicking butt in the entrepreneur community. And if you're a mom, I'm sorry, that is an entrepreneur place. You are doing a lot of entrepreneur things like organization, scheduling. All of the things that a mom does for her kids is often an entrepreneur type of activity, and this is actually one of the reasons why women make such amazing entrepreneurs. Truly. But a lot of you were coming to me and saying things like, if I could just change, or I could do this better, then maybe I would find love. Maybe he would love me, or maybe my clients would love me, or my mom and dad would love me. Like, guys, relationship trauma is a thing. And I'll tell you something, and I'll say I've said this in Bold Hearts Big Moves, so go check out that podcast still. It's good. But if that's something you're dealing with, you're also dealing with financial crisis. Because your relationships are tied to the way you do finances. And if you're struggling with money, it is a self-worth problem. Money and our self-worth, they use the exact same language because they're actually the parts of the brain that we think about when we think about our self-worth and self-love, and then the parts of our brain that light up because of money, they're actually the same. So the more you love yourself, and when I talk, and we're going to get into like what self-love actually looks like, because that's another big question is, well, I don't want to be narcissistic. I don't want to be cruel. That's not self-love, guys. When you truly, truly love yourself, you would never be that way. And we're going to get into what that is. But the whole point of today's podcast is to get you to come back to you. Now, I'm coming back because I've realized that I want to talk about healing in a Christ-centered way. And we're not just talking about betrayal trauma anymore. We're talking about the way trauma impacts like your goals, the way that you want to do things in life. The family you want, the way you want to raise your kids, the business you want to build, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the lifestyle you want to live. The trauma you are dealing with, or even the trauma that is in your relationships right now, whether it's a husband that deals with pornography, or parents that don't see you, or siblings that don't see you, maybe adult kids that don't see you, etc. That all has an impact on you achieving your goals. It really seriously does. And that needs to change. And it's time for you to come back to you. You know, today I was actually talking with a client. I've been working with her for quite a while, actually. Love her with all my heart and soul. But we actually got into this very topic about the idea of what self-love is. And I could feel her literally hesitating and holding back and not willing to really step into this. And so I stopped and I called her out on it. And I said, what's going on? Like, we'll call her Bethany, okay? Bethany, why are you struggling with this concept? And we talked about, she's got a couple of kids, and I said, well, how do you view them? Oh, I love them. They're just the best thing in my life. Like, I'm so grateful for them. Like, my daughter does this and this and this and this. My son does this and this and this and this, and they're just amazing. Do they always see themselves that way? No. How do you feel? How do you feel when your kids see themselves as less than what you know them to be? No, I don't like it. Would you rather you hurt, or would you rather your kids hurt? Me. I'd rather be hurting than my kids. Yeah. Absolutely. And why is that? Because I think they're perfect.
I think they're amazing. They are the best thing in the world to me. I'm in awe of them. So if you, as an imperfect mother, who's still trying to understand her own identity, loves her kids that fierce, sees them that fiercely, how do you think a perfect father feels about you? Any different? What if we could really see ourselves through the lens that God has for us? What if that was self-love? Because here's the thing. If you see yourself and you know yourself the way God sees and knows you, are you seriously going to act out of alignment with that? See, people who are narcissistic, and I'm just using that term because that's a term that people will identify with, but let's maybe even just say a very, very difficult person in your life, okay? And I know every single one of you has got a an image of someone in your mind right now. Okay? Think about that difficult person for just a moment. Okay? And I don't want you to listen to what they're saying with their words. What do their actions and their energy say about the way that they believe about themselves? Now you might say, well, they act all confident. They act all cool. They act like they know what they're doing. Really? Then why is it that they're so difficult? How do they treat you? How do they treat other people? And is that what confidence is? Going back to my client Bethany, her former husband was not a nice person, and actually was quite mean, and was constantly degrading her and tearing her down and telling her to believe lies about who she was and who she is. And, years and years and years of that getting in your head, you tend to kind of start to question reality, especially if you don't have an anchoring in who you are. But she thought he was confident. But the truth of the matter is when somebody does not like themselves, see we have two sides of the spectrum. We have someone who thinks that self-love is bad, and so they self-deprecate, right? Because they don't want to be seen as prideful. They don't want to be a jerk. They don't want to be a narcissist. They don't want to be mean. They don't want to be prideful, right? And I get it. But then there's also the other side of this. There's the people that actually do believe that they're the worst humans on the planet, but they don't want that validated. They don't want somebody to actually poke that bear. They want to hide it. And so they overcompensate by putting on this huge bravado. And they like showing off, and I'm the best, and I'm the greatest, and I deserve the best. And if you represent in any way what they are afraid of, they will attack you. Right? And the thing is people that are on that side, the ones that are really, really terrified of being seen, of having that idea validated that they are the worst human ever, those people prey upon the ones that don't want to be prideful. Because the people that don't want to be prideful tend to people please. And they want people that'll people please so that way they can constantly get them to question themselves and question their worth. So that way they have control. And if they have control, that fear that they have will never be validated. This is why those people want that type of control over you, or over someone, maybe not you, but over someone that tends to have a lower self-esteem. But here's the truth. When you love yourself, you can see your flaws, and you can see your mistakes, and you can see where you made a giant no-no, right? Or you can see your imperfections. Are you a faithful listener to the other side of the struggle? Have you loved the other side of the struggle for as long as you've been listening to it? Have you been waiting and begging for more episodes to come out? Well, good news. Come 2026, the very first part, the other side of the struggle is coming back better than ever, better than it's ever been, just for you listeners. So now you can heal your trauma in ways that you've never realized were possible before. So tune in, 2026, we're coming back. And you love yourself anyway. And it's a whole different language. To give you an example, but at the time of this recording, I have done something that really was not the smartest idea. And you guys have heard me say that, I'm trying to work on my health, and I'm trying to work on like clearing my weight out and just being a more in general healthy person. And I know sunlight's good, right? Sunshine is really, really good. And you also know, if you've been listening to me for a while, that I am a very modest person. And I'm talking modest in dress, modest in mind, modest in the way that I view myself, right? I'm just a modest person. Well, we were out camping a couple of weeks ago, and we were out fishing, and we were by the lake, and there was nobody else around. It was a really warm day. The lake was super still and super clear, and the water was just reflecting that sunlight and glistening and glorious. It was so beautiful. And I thought to myself, I don't want to get sunburned. And so I get out my sunscreen, and by the way, it's organic and non-toxic, just so you know. And so I put the sunscreen on my arms, on my legs, on my neck, on my face. And then I got thinking, and I'm like, you know what? There's nobody else here. There's just my family. You know, my stomach could probably use a little bit of sun. And so I rolled my shirt up just to expose my stomach to some of the sunlight. I didn't think to put sunscreen on it. And I didn't think to also temper it that with just a little bit. My stomach has not seen the light of day in a long time, guys, like a long time. And so my lily white skin that probably signaled the second coming of Christ, because it was that bright, was exposed to not only the sunlight, but the sun reflecting off of the water back onto my lily white skin for 4 hours, guys, without sunscreen. Yeah, if you're sitting there going, oh, there's a reason. Yeah. It is now 2 weeks, and I am still healing from that massive, massive, massive sunburn. It wasn't good.
But I have an option here. I can sit there and say, like, you stupid fool, how dare you? How could you do such a thing to yourself? Like, what is your freaking problem? I could get really mean, thinking I'm going to quote unquote humble myself, or I can actually take the humble route, which is love and truth. Erin, that was a pretty silly thing to do. I still love you. I can see your intent. I know that you were just trying to do the best thing for you, for your body, that you were trying to heal your body, that you know sunlight's good, not that much, but you know that it's good and your intent was good. How can we improve the execution next time? Remember sunscreen and remember just a little bit of sun goes a long, long ways, right? And I can laugh at myself because loving myself, oh, loves, there's nothing prideful about that. I can acknowledge where I've done wrong, but I can also acknowledge where I did right. And then I can say, how can I adjust my actions to meet the desired result? Self-love is key. And it's time for you to come back to yourself because, my love, you are the one person you can't ever get away from. You could leave your husband. Your kids are going to move out someday. They're not going to be in your home. You might have friends leave, family leave. But the one constant in your life is you. That means that the relationship you have with you matters. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to live with somebody who's constantly berating me and tearing me down and telling me I'm a fool. I want somebody who loves me. And if you want to take this one step further and talk about how this actually applies in a biblical sense, my loves, if Christ is the Father of all truth and is the Father of all love and healing, the adversary is also the father of all lies. They are the exact opposite of each other. The exact opposite. And the adversary cannot tell a truth, otherwise he will cease to be the adversary. The same way God cannot tell a lie, otherwise he will cease to be God. Now, before you guys argue with me and sit there and say, well, yeah, the adversary does tell the truth. No, he doesn't. He uses facts, and then he manipulates the fact, and he manipulates the way you think about it to destroy you. That is the definition of a lie. They use what is actually true, and they hide, or they manipulate it, or they dishonor it because they want some type of destruction. That is a lie. But God uses those facts to build and to create and to fortify and to fill you with love. That is what God uses those things for. So the same way God cannot tell a lie, the adversary cannot tell a truth. So therefore, whatever you're hearing about yourself, whether it be you're fat, you're ugly, you're stupid, nobody wants you, you're not lovable, etc., the exact opposite is true. And that's what God thinks. If you want to get into the details of what God thinks, ask yourself, will God think I'm a failure? Because if he thinks I'm a failure, well, then he must be a failure because he created me. And if he only creates perfection, then what the heck happened? It doesn't make sense, my love, for you to be anything less than perfect.
but you might not understand yourself as such yet. And when somebody is perfect, they show up like Christ. You tell me one time in the Bible when Christ shrank because someone demanded it, because someone told him he was too much. And he had that happen. The Pharisees and Sadducees told Christ all the time that he was too much. All the time. And you tell me when he shrank back. My loves, he stated who he was. I am that I am to Moses. I am the Son of God. He that hath a desire for life shall find it in me. He that followeth me shall thirst no more. He created miracles, my loves, because he knew he was a miracle worker. And he never shrank back because of trauma. Never once did he do that. And he gave you that example so that way you too could understand what love is. And Christ was not prideful. It's time to be bold. Bold in your love for yourself. Not over the top, but to see yourself the way God sees you, and to do that, challenge the negative thoughts, the thoughts that are keeping you lower than what you want to be. Challenge those thoughts. Find the exact opposite of them. Say them out loud and see what happens. See if you don't feel yourself start to buzz and tingle with truth and love for yourself. And you can ask yourself again, Lord, is this what you think about me? Is that what you created? The first and greatest commandment is to love God. But if we love God, it also makes sense to love ourselves. Love ourselves enough not to push other people away. Christ lent out a healing hand because he knew who he was and he loved himself enough not to jeopardize that. That is what I mean by come back to yourself. The world will teach you that you're not worthy, especially if you're a woman. Nothing personal, guys. If you're listening to this, we love you too. And you have your own set of struggles and people saying that you're worthless too. I get it. But the message of the world for women is that our only worth lies if we have a perfect body and we need to show off our body. It's not true. Our worth is far greater than diamonds, says the Lord. And we get to live that. We get to be that. We get to embody that. Because it's true. And I'll tell you something too. When you live that way and you love yourself that way, again, you don't behave below your self-belief. You don't behave above your self-belief. You behave right where you believe your self-belief is. Come back to yourself by seeing yourself the way God sees you. Check every positive thought with what he thinks, because he's not going to tell you a lie. And he's also not going to tell you you're worthless, because then he would be a liar. If he is your ultimate creator, then there's a reason why he created you, and it's your job to find out why. All right, my loves. I hope this is helpful. I am so glad to be back with you. Please, if you guys have questions or comments or anything,
support the show, message the show, and I will do podcasts around your comments and questions from now on as well, as long as there's enough. So make sure you submit your questions and comments to the show. Feel free to say hi. Let me know what your favorite episode is. And until next time, I'll see you on the other side, my loves. Bye. Hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me today and listening in on this podcasting episode. Don't forget to tune in next week. It's gonna be awesome.